Hey there, how's it going? I'll show you my shirt today. It's a little psych humor. It says Pink Floyd, not Pink Floyd. You know, it's a band. This is kind of like Dark Side of the Moon with Dr. Freud there, the dark side of consciousness. Yes, I was a psych major. Anyhow, I got this from the psych club at my old school. Anyhow, it's something I enjoy. Little humor now and then doesn't hurt. So, what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about some of the money lies that we have in our life that hinder our success. Our success, meaning whatever you want success to mean. But for like money, I want to fix that a little bit. There we go. Anyhow, like for money, for income, for wealth, I mean, there's a lot of things that we believe that people have told us that have we put into our head. When I was in psychology school, back when I was in college, we called it tapes, rerunning tapes. People tell you things over and over again. You start to believe them. There's a whole study in propaganda and lies about, the more you tell a lie, the more people believe it's true. And from the time we get up till the time we go to bed, from the day we're born till the day we die, we're being lied to. And it's not all nefarious. I mean, it's not all evil. I mean, there's ways people use manipulation, things like that, for advertising, news, going to church, our parents, about Santa Claus, about when I was younger, I remember the big thing was, don't eat eggs, they have cholesterol, it's bad for you. Well, you don't hear that anymore because eggs is a really good source of protein, and they found out that the cholesterol in eggs don't necessarily always impact your blood cholesterol. So it may not have been they were lying to us, but we've been through some health situations globally the last few years. I'm not going to get into details of it, but you know that a lot of things that we were told initially weren't true. Back when I was in high school, speaking of school again, I had a health class, and one of the sections that we studied was about advertising and manipulation. And I can't remember what all the different techniques were, but one of the things is our brain, even though the words are in front of us or we hear the words, will change the meaning of things. Like, for instance, if you do this, this may happen. What does may mean? Doesn't mean it's guaranteed. It's possible to happen. It's just like when you see the commercials for all these medications that they advertise every other commercial, or sometimes back-to-back commercials. After they tell you what the medication is for at the end, or sometimes even halfway through the commercial, they talk about all the bad things that could possibly happen. Does it mean it'll happen to you? No, but they have to disclose that. But a lot of things that they sell you may not work for you, or there's pressures of, think about like when you were in school, or even as an adult, there's pressures to conform to different things, like what kind of clothes to wear, things like that. And when these lies come towards us, it's not always nefarious. They're not trying to do something to ruin your life or empty your bank account. I mean, that's possible. But some of them are just, little white lies so that maybe you'll buy their product. So anyhow, I just want you to know that we're being lied to all the time, and it could be the media, it could be the news, it could be your pastor in church, it could be your parents, it could come from all sorts of different places, books you read. So anyhow, let me go through some things here. The reason why I want to talk about this is that I want you to think about these things on your daily basis, and instead of just letting stuff float into your mind, be a little more critical about what you hear. And it's things that come out of your mouth or your family's mouth, or what that runs through your head, your silent voice in your head. Think about some things. And here's some things I want to debunk, so that you realize that not everything you hear or believe is reality. I'm going to do my best. So one of the first things I want to talk about is, and I've heard this from so many people, is that rich people are bad. Are all rich people bad? No. Are all middle class people bad? No. Are poor people bad? No. But there are bad people in any social or any strata of the social economic setup. I've heard things from people that rich people are bad because they never knew how to work. They were given that money from their parents. They inherited it, so they have no morals, no conscience. Or people get rich from screwing others. They say have a business and they overcharge everything. That's how they become rich. What else is it? Oh, and they're snobby and they're arrogant and they'll cut you off in traffic. I can tell you I've probably been cut off in traffic by as many BMWs and Porsches as I have people that have a fish symbol on their back bumper. There's no relationship to it. Fact of the matter is, a lot of people become rich because they do what they're supposed to do to become rich. They will start a business or go to school and become a leader in some way. It's like some people will get an idea in their head. There's several examples of it. I mean, look at Henry Ford. He was one of the first people that built cars in America. He came up with his idea of the assembly line, okay? He created something of value that was able to pump more cars out the door and make it easier and more efficient for his workers to create those cars. How do you make money? You serve more people than one-on-one. You serve hundreds of people, thousands of people. People that are willing to buy your product or your service, and you set it up in ways to where you can serve more people with less of your time. You leverage other people's stuff, whether it's their money, their expertise, their skills, whatever. You find a way to serve more. Tony Robbins said something years ago that really stuck to me because I kept watching videos of his, and he would be in these stadiums just filled with people. I have no idea how much each person paid or how much it cost to have that venue, but he would go out for an hour or whatever he did. But he had an audience that was huge. Even if each one of them just paid $1, and all that went to him, that's a lot of money. And he served a lot of people. So like when McDonald's started, they used to have a thing up on their marquee saying so many thousands of people, so many millions of people, so many billions of hamburgers served. They don't have it anymore because they're all around the world. In one day, they probably serve 1 billion hamburgers. But it's a numbers game. You have to have something of value, service or a product that people want, and you give it to a lot of people. And if you have the higher the value of what you're producing, the more money you get, the more money it comes in. So rich people are not necessarily good nor bad. But here, think about your own beliefs. Do you believe that they're bad? One of the things that happens to people, and it happened to me, I used to work in aerospace, and I jumped from one company to another, basically doing something. The new job had a little bit more responsibility, a little more, utilized more of my skills than the last job. But they offered me twice as much as what I had in the last job. And the friend that helped me get that job, that set me up to network, to talk to the right people in the company, they said, did you negotiate? And I went I had no idea I was going to make that amount of money. I didn't even think about it. I was overwhelmed. So part of me was shocked. Part of me was excited because now I was going to make enough money to do things like buy a new car or move to a nicer apartment, whatever. And there was also a part of me going if I negotiated, I wouldn't know what to negotiate for because that's a lot of money. What they were paying me at the last place was X, this is 2X. And part of me felt a little guilty because it made me wonder about money and how that works. I was so confused. I was glad I got it, but that was the thing, okay, I'm going to be doing still 40 hours a week, and still doing the same kind of thing I did the last job, but they're paying me more. I felt guilty about that. And where does that come from? Because thinking that money is bad. We're going to get into that. All right, let's see here. What's the next one here? People talk about things out of the Bible that says, poverty is piety and wealth is wickedness, things like that. If you read enough of the Bible, and I am not no expert, I will put in the link down below. Put a link in down below about somebody I think can really be helpful when the Bible talking about business and wealth and things like that. He's really good at it. I'll put it in there. His name's Myron Golden, and I've watched a lot of his videos, and it's very good. But if you think about the Bible and thinking that it's against wealth and money, you need to learn things. You need to learn and read some of the things. I mean, there's a lot of warnings and cautions and values about wealth and wealthy people, things like that. It's not the money is good or bad. It's what you do with the money and how you got it. So there's a lot of good people in the Bible, obviously, and there's good rich people in the Bible. Like, for instance, Abraham. It says right in the Bible, and I'll put the chapter and verse in below so you can look it up for yourself. It says in there that, number one, God liked him. He was one of the first people that God chose on this planet to be godly. Is that it says in the Bible he was wealthy with silver, gold, and livestock, cattle. Now, if you think of God wanting people to be good people, right? And if God thought that wealth was bad, you would think that he would have had Abraham give up his wealth, sell his cattle, give up his gold and silver, but no, he didn't. So it's not that wealth and money are good or bad. It just is. You can do a lot more with money than you can without having money, that's for sure. So the Bible isn't against us being wealthy. So if you have a pastor that's saying that, you may want to start reading the Bible yourself and pointing some things out to him. Here's one that is misquoted a lot. It says, money is the root of all evil. Number one, it doesn't say that. You can't find that in the Bible. It's missing a word. The love, think of that, the love of money is the root of all evil. And there's more into it as well. I mean, that's what Myron Golden does. He digs deep into this and lets you know some things about what the Bible is saying in that section. Again, do your own homework. This is why I say this over and over again. If you're quoting something from the Bible, you better know where it came from and what its context is. The love of money. It means basically if you put money above everything else in your life, your family, your friends, people, your business partners, your renters, anything like that, if you put it above people, then it does become evil. Okay? You want to serve people and use money to do it with. When you do it, when you have that mindset, good things happen, both the people you're working with and also yourself for your income. So money is not the root of all evil. The love of it is. And like I said, there's more to it than that. You can go watch Myron's videos and learn more if you want to get deeper on that. Here's another one, which is a lie, and a lot of us believe it, especially those of us who work 40 hours a week. In other words, are employees instead of entrepreneurs, is you need money to make money. Now, on its face, it sounds like it's true. Yeah, I would say there's a grain of truth there, but it's not 100% true. You know, people say, I want to save up for a car, or I'm going to save up for my wedding, I'm going to save up to buy a house. The way things have been in my lifetime, and I think for my parents as well, if you saved up to buy a house in cash, most people would never own a house, because it's very difficult to save up a lot of money when you're working, especially a 9-to-5 job. That's why you use OPS, other people's stuff. And when you start learning about investing, learning about business, getting those mindsets, those skills in your head, you find out that you can use other people's things, stuff, like for money. You can use other people's money. When you borrow money from the bank, you're using other people's money. Yes, you're not stealing it. You're not just getting it flat out. You're renting that money, and someone on the other end who's giving that money to the bank is making some interest off of it, or a private investor, or a partner. If you're going into a business or a real estate project with a partner, they have money, but they have no interest in looking for the property or managing the property, anything like that. You can use that. And using other people's skills as well. Some people have other things they can bring to the table. It's why, a lot of us say that money is a team sport, investing is a team sport, business is a team sport. If you try to do it all by yourself, you're not going to get very far. So you don't want to necessarily save up for everything, and you don't need money to make money per se. Let's go a bit farther down here. More money will solve all my problems. I believe that, and there's inside my head, I still have that theory in there that, if I make more money or get a better job, problems will go away. Yeah, money can help solve problems, but sometimes money is a reflection of who you are. What do I mean by that? Is that one of my teachers had this analogy, the mirrors that women have for doing their makeup and the like. On one side, it's a mirror and you see yourself as you are. Okay, there's no magnification, anything. You flip that thing over, next thing you know, your eyes are this big, and your nostrils are that big, and you can see every pore in your skin. Money is an amplifier. So if you are a good person and you do good things and you have money, you tend to do good things with it. If you're not a good person, you don't know how to handle money, and you start making money, bad things can happen. You've all probably heard that of instances when people win the lottery and within a year or two they squander it all, or they could be even worse off than they were before they won the lottery because they didn't know how to handle the money. So it won't solve your problems, but for instance, if you don't have enough income and you have teeth problems, or your car needs some work and you don't have money, you don't have the credit for it, getting extra money, yeah, it'll help solve it. But you need to have not only the income, but also the skills and mindset, belief system, so that you can improve on that. And so you don't have these problems. Another thing, I think I told you guys in other videos, when I was a math tutor, I would have people come to me, and we don't do it anymore. Some people still do it, us older folks, some of us, is balancing your check account. Okay, it used to be you got in a statement every month and you would line it up with your, what was it? It's called a check register. It's a little book about the same shape as checks. And you go through there and check off things that cleared the bank, things like that, and see if your balance matches what the bank has. They would come to me and they say, I run out of money before I run out of month. And it wasn't that they weren't making enough. It was basically they did not know how to figure out what's in their bank from moment to moment. Now, you go on your phone and check your balance at any time. But back then, you had to, you only found out from the bank unless you went to the bank and got a balance from them once a month. So I taught people how to basically use that check register. Every time you put a check in there, you put the date, you put the check number, you put what it's for, or who you wrote it out to, the amount, and you deduct it from your previous balance. The next time, if you get your paycheck, you put your paycheck in there, the date, blah, blah, blah. So we always have this running balance. It was amazing when I taught them how to do that. They came in at the end of the month, they said, I paid all my bills and I have money left over. I realized what's going on. that also gets into budgeting. We'll be getting into that in a minute. Anyhow, more money by itself, if you don't know where your status is, may not solve your problems. So that there's always a grain of truth in all these things, but it's not 100% true. Okay, debt is always bad. Now this is something I learned from different sources, but for Robert Kiyosaki, his books, and also his game, Cash Flow, Cash Flow 101, is that it's how he puts it. We have good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is when you use it for personal reasons, like buying a car, buying your own house. If you can, you should have that paid off. You should have no personal debt whatsoever. That's the goal. And the good debt is when you borrow money for things that make you money. For instance, if you buy a house and rent it out, you can structure the deal in such a way to where the rent that your tenants pay you on a month-to-month basis exceeds all the debt, not the debt, all the expenses on that property, whether it's insurance, taxes, you're paying on the debt of that property, the mortgage, things like that, and what's left over is what you keep, okay? If the debt that you're using makes you money, it becomes an asset. The house is an asset, but also that debt is an asset because you have that debt. You're able to buy that house and make extra money. That's when it's not bad. Again, and leveraging other people's stuff. You can find people, private lenders. Sometimes there's people that have a lot of extra cash. They want to make more money than just sticking it in a savings account, making 1%. You can give them a lot better deal than that. So you're paying them. They're making money off your deal, but also they helped you buy that asset to make more money. So debt isn't always bad. I'm just not good with money. Okay, a lot of us could probably fit in there. That's a belief, number one, which is going to cripple people. Okay, if you have that belief, you're going to be very crippled. You're not going to be willing to go out on a limb and try new things and find ways to increase your income, to increase your wealth. That's a belief, but it's also a skill. And like I said, with the people that came up and asked me for help to help balance their checkbook, because they didn't learn how to do it. That's the belief they started having, is that money and me, we part ways all the time. You need to learn about money. Okay, you need to know how money works. What TV will tell you is a complete lie. Okay. If you're a billionaire, it doesn't mean you've taken money from other people, because that $1 billion someone has or you have, it doesn't sit under your mattress and do nothing. It's not hoarding. You're not hoarding money. It's in the system. The more money you make, the more wealth you have, the more people you employ, the more products you produce. It grows everything else. It doesn't drain the system. That's for another video. But anyhow, and I think there's a couple of videos on YouTube I could probably put on there too, but I'll wait until I do the video about how money works. But you learn how money works, and you learn how to make it your friend, not your enemy. Again, balancing your checkbook, learning, starting to see things. For instance, once you balance your checkbook, you know where you stand, right? Like tomorrow you got to pay rent. Well, you look at your checkbook or your phone, whatever, you see you have enough to cover that. But if you go and buy a new car or, some jewelry, whatever it is that's more than just, food, that you're not going to be able to pay rent. So knowing where your money is, knowing how to have the discipline with your money, you become good with your money, and it starts becoming good to you. Another one, investing is too risky for me. Now, why people believe that? Number one, they're sold that bill of goods by others that because people bring up all these people that have crashed and burned doing investing and the like. So you get scared. You think it's, investing other than sticking it in a savings account is risky. And they say, well, this is FDIC insured. Well, when we had our last crash, was one thing I was reminded of. I didn't lose any money, fortunately, but that insurance isn't as good as you think it is. But that's for another video. But anyhow, how do you manage risk? Risk is managing risk. It comes from experience and learning. How do things work? If you're buying real estate, you just don't go up and buy some house and give them whatever money they want without having it inspected, blah, blah, blah. You want to know what's going on. If this house is a money pit, you're not going to buy it for a rental. You may buy it to rehab, but you're not going to pay top dollar for it. You need to know the ins and outs of any kind of investment you're doing, whether it's buying real estate, whether you're flipping stuff at garage sales, buying things for pennies on the dollar because you know that they're more valuable and put them up on eBay or whatever, and you sell them and make a little bit of a margin there. Gold and silver, precious metals. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyhow, things like Bitcoin. If you don't know how they work and how they're structured, you might be taking more risk than you can handle. But like Robert Kiyosaki and his wife say, start out small. If you're going to think about investing in precious metal, buy a little bit of silver, buy a little bit of gold. Watch the value go up and down. What kind of things affect the value? Just like the dollar, or like stocks. If there's an oil embargo someplace, suddenly the price of oil will shoot up. Maybe that's a day to sell, right? Anyhow, so by learning and experience, you become more risk tolerant because you know what the ins and outs are, you know what to look for, things like that. Just investing in general is not risky. It's just as risky to get out of bed every morning. You could stand up and fall down and break your head, So there's risk to everything. Now I was going to get to this I was talking about the checkbook. Budgeting means deprivation. Not necessarily. Okay? Here's what you need to do. This is how you budget. Okay, you look at your current situation, whether it's software or however you keep track of your bills, your income and your expenses and your liabilities, meaning your credit cards or your mortgage, whatever. You need to lay it out somewhere and analyze it. First of all, that would be your initial budget. What do I spend every month? That's your de facto budget. And then you look at the numbers and you go, well, can I put some of this to the side? Or like you have a high interest credit card. Instead of going out to dinner every night, maybe we'll go out to dinner once a month and we'll use that money that we were spending on going out to paying off this credit card. That's what budgeting is. But people have been told if you really look at your money, because money is scary, you're not going to be able to have any fun whatsoever. So again, that's a lie. All these lies have a grain of truth, but you can overcome them. Financial success is just luck, okay? There's luck in everything, okay? Sometimes when you're playing a sport and, your skill level's here, and every once in a while you say, golf, for instance, you're at this level, and that's about where you're playing right now, but it's a windy day, and you hit the ball the way you always do, and the wind carries your ball and puts it right in the cup. That's luck, right? Success is not luck. Success is study, discipline, experience, things like that. There's always a part of luck in everything, chance, if you want to call it that. But the more you learn, the better you get at it. Just like anything else, whether it's a sport, martial arts, art, painting, whatever. The more you learn, the more you practice good techniques, luck becomes less of an issue. Okay, so let's go through some things here. The reason why I brought this up is that in all the years I have been tutoring and teaching and consulting others with their money and with their success and the like, is that a lot of things that keep us from moving forward is fear. It's beliefs that are stumbling blocks. Believing the lies. How you get out of that basically is from experience, learning, and practice. Okay, educate yourself. I don't care where it is. You got good sources. You got YouTube. There's a lot of good people out there, like Myron Golden, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. He has some good stuff out there. There's a lot of good sources. There's books out there. Challenge your beliefs. Examine what you have experienced and replace the negativity with evidence-based optimism. When you go to these seminars, things like that, and when you test them out in real life, like I said, starting out investing, start small, see how you do. Did you make a mistake? Did you lose some of your investment? What did you learn from that? So instead of being afraid of mistakes, always look at them as a learning possibility, learning experience. Surround yourself with like-minded people. If you're in real estate investing, go to RIA meetings, real estate investor association. Go there. You have people that you can talk to that are in that field, doing that thing. They have people that show up that will do a seminar, talk about what works and what doesn't work. These kind of things will get you going. And again, embrace your mistakes. I had one investment that I lost quite a bit of money on it. Unfortunately, I had to sell it when the market went down because I needed the money for health issues in the family. And it was very painful. Didn't recoup that at all. But I learned something not only about myself, but I learned about things about people that you do and do not partner with. I should make that a video too. You got to trust your gut. And your gut may not be right all the time. Mine's been wrong a couple times. Very, very wrong. There was one time that I thought, oh, this is really not going to work. And it turned out being a very good experience. But, when you're around people, you just get that feeling and you're not sure what it is. Check that out. If it's somebody, do some research. I mean, now that we have the internet, you can find out any about almost anything about anybody. Do they have a criminal record? Have they screwed out other partners? Things like that. But like I said, don't be 100% with your gut, because it can be wrong. It can be wrong. But if you're feeling uncomfortable about something and you can't put your finger on it, there's a reason for it. Your gut, whatever that is telling you to be cautious and be aware of that. So again, when you watch TV, when you watch commercials, start looking at it from the outside, not just face value. It's like, what are they trying to sell here? Like car commercials. Car commercials aren't what they used to be. They used to talk about features and the like, and now it just seems like you're part of some group. If you have this car, you're part of this group. It's a cultural thing. No longer is like, does it got power brakes and power steering, all those things they used to advertise. But be very critical of those things. Same thing with the news. When they say something to you, does it really work? When someone quotes something to you from the Bible, ask them chapter and verse and go read it. Go read it in context. Read the whole chapter and see if it makes sense to you. There's different versions of the Bible, meaning it's different languages. If the King James, which is very, very much old, in my opinion, Old English, it's very hard for me to read. Read one of the more newer versions and maybe you can understand what's going on. Find a good Bible teacher. There's some people that know the Bible inside and out. Like Myron Golden, like I said, I'm going to put a link down below for his channel. But one of my goals when it comes to talking about money and success is, what are the lies we've told ourselves? What are the lies that we have internalized from whatever source, and really challenge them. Is that really true? Do your homework. Is that really the case? Is everybody that is rich, are they really bad people? Are they, stealing from other people? Are they abusing other people, mistreating other people? I don't know. I've known some wealthy people that have been the nicest, most generous people I've ever known. I don't know. But don't let other people's perceptions of where you want to go control your destiny, your goals. If you want to become wealthy, do it. Go focus down that path. If you want to create something to where you're helping a lot of people, you may be amazed. You think, well, I thought this was a nonprofit, but this is now turning into a business, and I'm making a lot of money. You got to let go of the guilt. We got a lot of guilt in our culture about doing almost anything. I remember taking my niece to school one time. This was a long time ago. And she basically said that, and she has some great gifts. She was very smart in some subjects. And I said, how come you're only getting, B's and C's in this? How come you're not getting A's? She says, well, we're not supposed to make other people look bad. So she was afraid to excel because that made other people look bad. And those kind of things will hold you down. If you have that from your childhood or even as an adult, look at those things. It may be what's between you and where you want to go is your belief system. So we may need to look at that. Anyhow, I'm starting to ramble now. I appreciate you staying on, liking, subscribing, sharing my videos with other people. But yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to serve a lot of people, and I want to help a lot of people, just like when I was doing tutoring. My goal when I help others is to work myself out of a job. When I was a tutor, I was like that. I wanted to teach my clients how to learn so that they could do the math on their own without needing assistance. That was just as important as me teaching them certain parts of the subject matter. And so same thing with the things I talk about on my channel. I've got a lot of different things I talk about, but it's always to help the viewer take what they have or what I help them learn to the next level, to where they're independent. They can do it on their own. So with that, I wish you all success and wealth and income in the world. Till next time, take care.